Recording in progress.
Started. The City of Plymouth City Council special meeting for Wednesday, November 15th, 2023 is now called to order. Members of the public not attending in person may submit written public comment prior to the meeting by emailing your comments to the Deputy City Clerk at vmchenry@cityofplymouth.org before 3:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Emailed public comments will be distributed to the City Council and be made part of the official record. This meeting is being recorded. We ask that everybody please silence all cell phones or similar devices at this time. Council chambers are wheelchair accessible. Special accommodations may be requested by contacting the City Clerk 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Could we please have a roll call?
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember McLaughlin.
Here.
Councilmember Amoruso.
Here.
Vice Mayor Sem.
Present.
Mayor Ackerland.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the City Council special meeting agenda for tonight, November 15th, 2023?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Can we please have a roll call vote?
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Councilmember McLaughlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Amoruso.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sem.
Aye.
Mayor Ackerland.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Special meeting public comment. Under provisions of the California Code, the City Council, citizens wishing to address the council at a special meeting for any matter on the agenda may do so by completing a speaker submittal form to the Deputy City Clerk or following the instructions noted on this agenda. Speakers will be called by the mayor at the point on the agenda when the item will be heard. Speakers are encouraged to keep comments to 3 minutes or less and to state their name and community of residence. Under provisions of the California Government Code, the City Council is prohibited from materially discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda unless it can be demonstrated to be of an emergency nature or an urgent need to take immediate action arose after the posting of the agenda. Number 4, there are no regular agenda items tonight. 5, consent calendar items. All matters listed under the consent calendar are to be considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless before the City Council votes on the motion to adopt, members of the council, staff, or the public request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. 5.1, correspondence. No correspondence for tonight? Okay. Item 5.2, approve the special meeting minutes of October 24th, 2023. Item 5.3, approve the special meeting minutes of the November 2nd, 2023 meeting.
I approve them as presented with the change, the special change on 4.1, Cranford's. It should be right here.
Okay.
That was the change on the, so, with that
Do-
change, I've heard it.
Do we have a second to?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember McLaughlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Amoruso,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sim,
Aye.
Mayor Ackerland.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. 6, public hearings. There are none tonight. 7, regular agenda items. 7.1, discuss the 49er Village and short-term rentals and related issues. I'm sorry, 7.1, discuss the 49er Village and short-term rentals and related issues. And before we get started on this, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. And this is a special meeting. We don't have just general, we're not going to have general public comment.
It's not on the agenda. The paragraph underneath makes very clear, speakers will be called by the mayor at the point on the agenda when the item will be heard. And that's the notice regarding special meeting public comment.
Thank you for the clarification. Regarding item 7.1, we will we'll begin with a staff report, and I was going to say thank you to all of you who are here. We have a large group tonight, so thank you for participating. I'd like to do a staff report and then council discussion, and then I would like to open it for public comment. That way, if you make your public comment after we've had a chance to discuss this, then I think you'll have more context. So could we please have a staff report on 7.1?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. This is an item that the council has been asking for some time. I apologize for it taking so long. There have been other pressing matters. I did call the 49er Village on Monday, and it took until today for the on-site manager, James, and I to connect. We did connect today, and we talked, and he's here tonight, sitting quietly, listening. The item as it's before you is for council discussion. The germane discussion is what the council wanted. I do want to say that there are 304 spaces currently at the 49er, 25 cabins for rent, and approximately 30 to 40% of the current spaces are occupied with full-time spaces. The TOT part of the discussion that you have that pertains to the 49er is only pertaining to the 49er. I can't give you a full citywide picture because TOT tax is not currently up to date in the financial system due to finance personnel being behind in inputting that data. As soon as that data gets up to date, I can give the City Council an update that you've been asking for on the full picture of the TOT. unfortunately, at this time, I'm unable to do that. And I will send that back to you for your discussion.
Thank you. I would like to ask my colleagues, especially Vice Mayor Sim, typically we go in a certain order. I'd like to ask you all if it's okay for me to start the discussion.
Yes.
Okay, okay. First of all, I want to talk about what this meeting is about. I want to talk about what it's not about. This discussion is not about displacing current residents. This discussion is not about anybody here tonight being against the expansion project. Excuse me. What this is about having an open and transparent discussion. And if one of us has a concern about something, as you all know, we can't go around and talk to other council members about the concern per the Brown Act. So to have a open and transparent discussion like we are tonight, it's my hope that we're here to discuss the future of the 49er Village and the future of our community, and that we do this together as a community. This discussion is also about looking at us fulfilling our fiduciary duty as a council. And I'll elaborate on this, but everywhere we see expenses are going up, including the city expenses. And at any time when we see revenues go down, that's a problem that we need to address. I did a little bit of research, take it with some of it with a grain of salt. But the background, the 49er Village, as everybody knows, has been a mainstay of the city of Plymouth for about 30 years. Local residents have very fond memories. Visitors have fond memories. And the 49er Village is well known for certain activities. I think the most popular being the annual Halloween event that they have. And we know that draws not only local families, but out-of-town visitors as well. Historically, the 49er RV Village has brought tourism to the area. Again, many fond memories and positive things have been said about the 49er Village. I had a conversation with somebody recently, and based on what I've learned since I've been living here, the 49er Village has been regarded as the gem of the city by many. However, recently there have been some negative reviews, and these negative reviews are kind of what caught my attention. Our city manager just gave us a review of or information about there's currently 304 sites at the 49er Village, with about 30 to 40% that have now been converted to annual leases. Around 2017, the 49er Village was sold to Sun Communities. For those of you who don't know, I just want to talk a minute about Sun Communities. And this is from their Sun Communities investor presentation, November of 2023. Sun Communities is a real estate investment trust listed on the New York Stock Exchange. As of September 30th, 2023, the company owned, operated, or had interest in 670 properties in the US, the UK, and Canada. In this presentation that I have referred to, they note that 27,000 transient sites in North America, 50% of those are candidates for conversion to annual leases. They also report that since the start of 2020, and this is a quote, since the start of 2020, we have converted approximately 6,760 transient sites to annual through October 31st, 2023, and we intend to continue driving conversions. Transient sites generate, in an example that they gave from Florida, transient sites generate $6,158 in annual rent versus annual sites which generate $9,324 in rent. So that's just a little bit of background. Having some of this brought to my attention and reading some of this, I have a number of questions. If there is going to be a decreased availability of short-term rentals in our area, how does this impact local businesses, hospitality, and tourism in our region? Decreased city revenue, how does this impact the general fund, street repairs, and TOT-related expenditures? And I think everybody should be aware that TOT revenue is our number one source of revenue here in our city. What's the impact on infrastructure, sewer and water? How is the payment on the service charges? AWA recently raised water rates to its wholesale customers. Is the city subsidizing the difference between wholesale cost to the city versus usage at the 49er, as we are for the rest of the city? And what impact might that have? The conversion to annual leases. Does this address affordable housing in our community? If it's truly affordable housing, then it should be treated like affordable housing. Are annual RV leases subject to rent control? I don't know the answer to that, but it doesn't look like that's the case. What is 49er Village? Is it an RV park, mobile home park? What's the current use permit? I'm wondering, could our finance director do a multi-year financial projection on how decreased revenue from 49er could impact the city? And then finally, is the conversion of transient sites to annual leases consistent with our general plan? Actually, I have one more final. I think this being on the agenda has generated a fair amount of discussion, comments on social media. And I just want to offer some food for thought. That I wonder, what if we weren't having this discussion? What if we didn't do anything? What would that look like for our city? That is all I have to say for now. So I'll ask the rest of the council for their comments and concerns. Councilmember White?
Okay, I by far don't want to seem like I'm any expert with any of this. So for long-term rentals, is there a time period on it is what I wanted to know. Is it just for as long as you want to live there? Is it 9 months? Is it 12 months? I've done very little bit of RVing in my life, but I've done a little bit. And I know at one point in time, my daughter lived in a park in Reading, and it was 9 months, and that was it. Now, I know that there's people who've lived their lives at 49er. I'm not knocking that. Or to be real honest, it's 49er's responsibility for the TOT. It's not the residents. So whatever spaces they have, I think we're looking at two different issues. And actually we're looking at three different issues. We don't have a lot of housing in Plymouth, so we need housing. Everyone needs to pay their fair way, I truly believe. And then what are the legal aspects of what, is at Sun Park? Can they, I don't know if there's a whole different group of laws that go with that. That's just my questions, I guess, and my concerns.
Thank you. Councilmember McLaughlin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I support bringing this item up because I think I think as a council, we have a responsibility to the community to look and assess and continually reassess all aspects of of business, revenue, and expenditures under the purview of the city, and this being one of those. The only way we can be able to look at these things and do it is to put it on an agenda and have an open conversation. Otherwise, we'd be in violation of the Brown Act or whatever else we would be alleged of being in violation of. I think, in this particular case, this to me, we have a responsibility in looking at the city as a whole. As soon as, with Ms. Roberts coming on board, we've come a long way in cleaning up our budget. We've been able to reconcile the CFD in question in Zinfandel. We're working to reconcile and clean up our contracts. We're working to clean up and reconcile the TOT work that's under place. This is just one piece of the bigger picture of work we have to do. As Mayor Ackerland pointed out, TOT is the largest revenue stream within the city of Merced. That should send off alarm bells throughout the community. It's a general fund city. Our number one source of revenue should be sales tax. Cities survive on sales tax. That is our lowest source of revenue in our city, or certainly one of the lowest. And so we're walking a very fine line financially, and I think we have an obligation to look at things. I think some of the soft pieces that tie into what Mayor Ackerland talked about is if this piece of land, let's just keep the name out of it, right? If this piece of land were converted and a trailer park was going to be built, or accessory dwelling units or small houses or whatever it be, each one of them would be responsible to pay impact fees to offset the impacts of development. The impacts of development include helping to make sure Plymouth Elementary is large enough to take care of schools, to make sure that our streets are sound and safe, to make sure our water and sewer infrastructure are in place. But by going in this model, none of those are subject to it. I'm not saying that they should be, but I think we have a much bigger conversation as a community that we have to have in order to ensure that we're fiscally sustainable for, well, hopefully years, but certainly decades to come. And so with that, I think I would think we would be negligent in not bringing forward and at least having this conversation and looking at all things. My hope is as we go through it and we find out that there's no negative impact, and let's stay the course and continue to move on, but then we have other things to continue to look at. The goal here isn't to single out a business. The goal here is to make sure our city continues to be incorporated in the decades to come. That is all.
Thank you. Councilmember Amoruso?
Well, I think both council members had very valid, good points. One of my glaring, I don't know if I could sum up or put it so eloquently, but some of my concerns are infrastructure. I mean, that's going to be one of the biggest ones. It's going to be, what are the impacts of like taking this from, when you have 3 or 4 days a week rental versus a full-time resident. I mean, that becomes an EDU, which is like a household, right? I mean, if you have 2-3 people, living in a trailer, using those services, sewer and water, and all the rest of the infrastructure, and then establishing residence here and going to our schools, again, those impacts are different than transient. And so, to me, that's been a big issue here about this transformation and its potential future, where we're going. So there's a lot of things to be discussed here. I think this is a great jumping off point to have many discussions to, look at all of the angles and how many ways to skin the cat here and make it successful for them and for us. But the citizens shouldn't bear the fiscal ramifications of that change, because there will be fiscal ramifications. I remember when I was, on council prior, it was always a big issue, and what a draw or drain on our resources that park could be at times due to, the amount of people there, especially for the sewer plant, and talking to the sewer guys, and they were just like, there's lots of angles that need to be looked at here, and I think this is very positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Sim?
Yes, I'd like to just chime in the fact that when you have full-time residents versus part-time residents, you certainly are putting more pressure on the sewer plant. They're using a lot more water. Water is one of our biggest issues here in this city, county. We're buying our water wholesale from AWA. They're only giving us so much. They've capped off our water usage our water delivery, and this park is, as it stands, it's gonna continue using more water when you have people living there 7 days a week. I also like to mention the fact that the mayor said, this is not about throwing people out of the RV park. It's about trying to control it, and so that it doesn't turn into a complete mobile home park. I don't think it was set up or established to be one. If we do become a mobile home park, we're not going to be getting the vacationers coming in, people coming in to visit the wineries. It's going to impact a lot of different businesses here in our city and the county if this becomes a low-cost mobile home park. It's a shame because I've also looked into this company. It's a $1.6 billion a year company that owns the park. They list all of their properties around the country, around the state. Most of them do not look like our park. It's clear to me that they are not keeping that park up. And I have a lot of friends that come and that came for years and years that will not come any longer. They either don't come to our area or they go over to the property over in Jackson, because ours this one here has become so shabby and so dysfunctional that they won't come here. And I think it's going to even if we do reinstate RVs and stop, try and slow down the full-time residents, it's not going to make it any cleaner or any nicer for the people that have told me that they won't come back. They don't feel it's worth the money. So I think everybody on this council has brought some very good points. Tonight, we're not making any decisions tonight. It's all about airing the sheets and letting everybody know exactly the things that we need to consider. I'll say one more thing. I've been watching Facebook a little bit, and there's been so many inaccuracies about the whole situation at the RV park. It's a shame because half of what I've seen is not true. We would like to do the right thing for the RV park and for the city of Plymouth, but, and I'll say it for the third time, a third of our income comes from that park. Our sales tax should be our main source of income. It's not. It falls way beyond TOT because we don't have the businesses in this town to generate sales tax. Hopefully down the road that's going to change, but right now it hasn't. So if our revenue stream goes the wrong direction, how are we going to maintain the city? How do we remain a city? These are all questions that are going to come up in the future. The Chronicle just came out with a big article a couple days ago how so many cities in California are having a very tough time. Their expenses have gone up and their revenues are going down, and it's a problem for even cities that are much bigger than ours. I think that's about all I have to say for the moment. Maybe I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, may I make just
Yes.
one more comment real quick?
Of course.
Just slipped my mind. I think just one other piece I think is just important for clarification, where this project, this property, this business is different than everything else in the city is that RV parks are governed by the state Housing and Community Development. We as locals do not issue permits. We do not have any regulations or oversights as we do for any other business we would have operating in our area. For example, if there was something coming into the vintage market that wanted to have whatever that business wanted to be, or we want to change the use, it would come through the city, it would come through our planners and the planning commission and the building department to be approved. But in this particular case, we're having a change of use where the city is not part of a conversation, but we are directly impacted by the change in that direction. So this is the unique nature. If this were something that were under the governance of the city, this item probably wouldn't even exist on an agenda because it would be handled as a matter of course of routine business. And so that's what makes this one, I think, gives this a little bit of a different feel. So, sorry, I thank you for the additional time.
Of course. Okay, I'd like to open this to public comment now. And Jamie Labenko, you've turned in a form. Would you like to come up first? And then we'll just call on the rest of you as you raise your hands.
Jamie Labenko, City of Plymouth business owner, City of Plymouth property owner, City of Plymouth volunteer, Fiddletown resident, just to be clear. I guess I would like to start by asking, what constitutes a special meeting? Is there a reason that these agenda items are on a special meeting and not on a atypical? I'm just not clear on why the meetings are happening so often as special meetings right now, and then tonight, like, it was a little bit caught off guard and not having a public comment period because it's a special meeting. So I'm just curious if.
Yeah, how about we get back to you
Okay.
with those answers?
Okay. Also, I'd like to just take a moment to encourage the council to bring back Zoom. I think that these decisions are probably impacting people's feelings about whether or not there's actual transparency here, whether or not those are true and valid feelings. I think that they are probably being getting a little more attention because of the lack of Zoom. With regards to the agenda item, thank you. I'm curious where the expansion for the park is in the process, because there is a expansion of that park, and if the expansion is intended to be transient spots or permanent spots. I was curious about the TOT tax funding. I know we don't have current numbers, but do we have last year's numbers or the years before? Because I think it's important for the community to know that we're speaking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I also think it's important that the community understands how that money is spent. The mayor did reference, and I think several of you did, that a majority of it does go into the general fund. We had some conversations in the community about that money being granted out for special events, and some of that is, but I think there is some type of a model that you guys use that 80% or 90% or something goes into the general fund and a certain percentage of it is held out for those special grants. So I think it would be important information for the community to have when they're discussing this. I'm also curious about, I missed the housing element meetings, and we've touched on it tonight that there is a lack of low-income housing in this community. I mean, that's actually a problem in the county and the state as well. Are there any plans in place? Is there any low-income housing on the horizon for our community? I will tell you my own personal experience. Ron and I purchased a piece of property behind Pokerville Market. We would like to at some point put duplexes or townhouses or apartments or something on that property. There are numerous hoops that we're having to jump through to even get that to the point where we could have the conversation with the city, partially because it had to be annexed into the city. But we have actually since backed away from any ideas relative to building on that land because of the water issues that we have in the county right now. We don't believe that we would actually be able to get water hookups to build apartment buildings. So I mean, it's a consideration. And again, I apologize, I missed your housing element meetings, but it would just be nice to kind of know what that looks like. I'd like to finish by saying that I've lived across the street from that park a majority of my life. There was a point in time when I lived in that park. I've lived at Gold Beach in my life. Living at the 49er might have actually been an improvement. And I'm not sympathetic to people who find themselves using that park as their housing at this point. But I agree with the council that these changes could have large impacts on our community, and there is a responsibility by the council to determine what those impacts are. So thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here in City Hall who'd like to make public comment? Please come on up.
Stephanie Moreno, Plymouth resident, small business owner, former city planning commissioner. I didn't intend to talk tonight because I'm still pretty angry at you guys. about how you treated Councilmember Kleinfelter, but I'm going to try to power through it anyway. I heard a lot of excuses tonight for why you want to do what you want to do, and I heard them all before you allowed public comment. And I've mentioned this before. You're supposed to make your decisions after you take public comment, not before. But yet every single one of you have expressed your opinion already on what needs to happen. I'd like to encourage you again to read the Brown Act, because I keep hearing it cited incorrectly and for different reasons. The excuses that you're giving tonight are all things that you failed to address in other aspects of the city. Zinfandel Ridge was approved without any affordable housing, without any mitigations, and I know that happened before your time. But now you're allowing Greeley Ranch to move through without any affordable housing. And then you're saying we need affordable housing? You're talking about sewer and these people, taking sewer capacity away from residents. You failed to hold your Prop 218 hearing to do the water and sewer rates. You're subsidizing the entire town right now because you failed to hold that public hearing. Everyone's going to get hit with a huge water and sewer increase because you haven't done that since the rates were raised. I think these are false flag arguments, and I think you need to be sincere. Maybe you do need to look at the revenue. Yes, that's your fiduciary responsibility, but it was also your fiduciary responsibility to look at the expenditures when you moved salaries from $458,000 in 2017 to $1.2 million in 2023. Where were your concerns about fiduciary responsibility when you were doing that? So be honest. You want this revenue. You have reasons for wanting this revenue. Find some compromises and ways to accommodate what everybody needs. But making decisions, and the park's been there for over 40 years. For people that have lived there, some of them for that 40 years, that could impact them is unconscionable. And I ask that the best thing that you would do, instead of giving direction tonight to staff, as you indicated in your report, is to hold a workshop to go through all the scenarios, to lay all the facts out. You don't like what I'm saying on social media? Fine. Prove me wrong with facts, not with just made up excuses. But do the right thing by the people that live in this town and that park. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here in City Hall who'd like to come up for public comment? Oh, yes, please come on up.
Good evening. I'm Rosemary Marino.
Can you hit the microphone, please? That's right.
Good evening. My name's Rosemary Marino Moody. I've lived in Plymouth most of my life. I remember when the 49er trailer park was being built. As a young child, it was exciting to watch the progress. My family attended the opening celebration, which was a great community event. The management and residents of the 49er trailer park have been a big part of our community since day one. While attending Plymouth Elementary and Amador High, I had several classmates that lived at the trailer park. These families were part of our community, participating in local events, supporting local businesses, and volunteering in local organizations. The management and residents are still very active in our community and our city. They have been great neighbors. There are many reasons that one may choose to live in a trailer park. Those reasons may be financial, lack of available or affordable housing, displacement due to natural disasters, job location, local family, convenience of services. I mean, we have a medical center here in Plymouth. How many places in Amador County have doctors right in their town, this close that you can walk to? Or simply to downsize. The choice is theirs, and they have a right to make the choice that is best for them. I truly support our permanent residents at 49er Trailer Park. They've been a big part of our community. And it doesn't matter where they live or what type of house they live in. It's where you make your home and your family and your community, and these people do. And yes, I know that the city is struggling with finances, but we need to look at the bigger picture here. Main Street is shutting down businesses. The city needs to be actively seeking how they can help our businesses to keep going, to provide those sales tax. The people that live at the 49er trailer park, they spend their money. They bring in sales tax for the city. No more than people coming for a couple of days here and there. They're here and they're supporting our local events. They're having events down there that they're inviting us to. They're not excluding the rest of the city. They're trying to be good neighbors. And I just think that we need to look at a bigger picture and not just target them as this is an easy way for us to get money for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here in City Hall? I saw a hand over in that. Yes, please come on up.
Judy Turner, Zinfandel Ridge. My question is there really any control over what Sun does with their 49er park anyway? And if the state is the one that really manages what they can and can't do, and even though our desire as the city of Plymouth would like to have the TOT tax, do we as a city of Plymouth have any power or clout to be able to even suggest or recommend or invoke or whatever words would be used to say you can or can't do anything, Sun, with your property because it's their property? So I get there's changes. I get that there are people that are unhappy with the changes, but I also know people living in the park that I have run into personally at Pokerville Market or downtown that are pissed off about how it's being managed and maintained, and they live there. It's not just people outside of the park. So I think there's information and opinions that are coming from all sides, inside and outside of the park. But my concern is, what can we really do as the city of Plymouth, as the city council, when this property is owned by a huge company and it's managed by the state?
Thank you. Please come on up.
J.D. Mars, Somalia Drive, Plymouth. I actually want to echo what my neighbor just said. I was thinking the exact same thing. I had the exact same question. So I just wanted to say that I'm another resident who has the same questions about the conglomerate who owns it. What can we do and what can we really do? I'm also curious, because I'm on a fact-finding mission too, just like all of you. I'm curious if there's anyone here who actually works, lives in 49er Village who is going to speak. I'd like to know what they want to say if anyone's here. So, but thank you. Thanks for all your work, by the way.
Thank you. Please come on up.
Hello, Bill Klaproth, Plymouth resident, and full disclosure on the Planning Commission. I think Stephanie Moreno mentioned this about the RV park expansion. We probably have to separate the two, right? So this is a specific conversation. Is, to my knowledge, being on the Planning Commission, that hasn't come back through the city, the Planning Commission, and the council. So we really can't opine on whether there's low-income elements to that because we just haven't gotten there. So just awareness for everybody else. That project hasn't come back formally to the Planning Commission or the council. I agree. I think we need to look at the impacts to the schools, the infrastructure, obviously the water in the future, right? Are we going to be able to service everyone? And it's how do we define that, right? So what is the definition of the park? Is that if the park is a long-term rental opportunity, let's define it that way and structure the park so it's going to help the city maintain the infrastructure. If it's not, let's identify what is the limitation on long-term housing versus short term, if that's something we can do. I don't fully understand Councilmember McLaughlin's comments about how the state has oversight. I just don't know what that means. So if you could expand on that, that would be great. It'd just be interesting to know. And if it is defined as a long-term rental opportunity, that could help the city, right, understand our housing element update needs, which require us as a city to provide low-income housing, right? So it all goes back to that definition, right? And if that could help the city and help our residents that live there, just like Mr. Marr, my neighbor, said, love to hear from residents if they're here as well. I've met several. I was down at Hasty's Sand and Gravel, met a lady that was in there doing some business, and they lived in an RV park. I'm like, great, we're neighbors, excellent. I've delivered food to people in the RV park because they need some help. They need, just like all of us, right? At times we need help. So at the end of the day, let's just, I think it's a good discussion because it helps us define what the park is, what the park is not, how it impacts the community. I think it's a good open discussion. And like Councilmember McLaughlin said, maybe this is a moot point. It benefits the city, right? As far as the revenue, the TOT, how that impacts the schools and infrastructure. And at the end of the day, let's just have that open and honest discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here in City Hall? Kind of looking around the room. Please come on up.
Hi there. My name's Amy Gomes. I'm a resident of Plymouth. I really hate public speaking, so I'm going to stumble through this. I think a lot of the problem that is happening is that there is no information in the packet for people to know what you're actually saying when you put things on the agenda. The only thing we can do, excuse me, is I listen to all the meetings and I pick up on the little nuances and I'm trying to figure out what you're actually doing. The packet has no information really for this item. It says that you guys are going to talk about short-term residents or housing. It doesn't say anything about the long-term residents. It feels purposefully misleading, and I start looking for why at that point. The other problem is that, you know, I have my son here who's going to be here every time now, and, you know, people are going to look back and shake their head that he's, you know, some people are nice, some people aren't nice about it, but it would be nice if Zoom was available, if there was ways that it could be made available. And the thing, and I'm saying this because I'm sorry that it's off topic slightly, but I don't have a public comment period at this time, and the meetings keep being special meetings, so I can't really get it in. We used to be able to call in. That was always available pre-2020. So now we can't even do that. Everyone has to be dragged down here.
Ms. Gomes, I'm sorry, but I think you are veering off
Okay, I'll
item
go back.
7.1. Thank you.
So I think it would be helpful if you could include more details in the packet for people. If you're going to keep it this way, I can't provide public comment in writing and actually have a substantial comment about anything because I don't even know what you're really talking about or what your intent is. And it would probably put people at ease and really make them understand if they knew what all of those items you're worrying about or thinking about. And it would be helpful to everyone. In this instance, I know that the trailer park has been, I thought it was, there's someone that lives there since for 40 years. It's been longer than 30 years. People have lived there in that whole ring the entire time. I've been here for years and years and years. So it also, we're always talking about our kids. You know, there's not enough kids in school, although probably that's changing because there's so many younger classes going together now. But there's a lot of kids that live there. And that are going to go to Plymouth School, and that are, you know, and I drove in there today. The people that are there are there. The whole park is empty. So your 10% that you get off of every single lot there, you're getting sales tax from those people every single day. Even though maybe it's not the sales tax that you want, I would think if you actually do a true study, you'd see that it is including making more money. You know, in that instance, it would be sitting there empty right now with no tot funds. So I have that to say. I guess I'm just frustrated with the lack of information in the packet, and I really wish that it would help everyone understand better. Yeah, and I understand that I would like it if it would more of a chance more of an effort would be made to reach out to the business owners prior, because I'm able to walk in there. I walk in there and talk to James. The city manager can do that also and let him know ahead of time, because the owners of that business can't get here in time for this meeting and to even participate. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here in City Hall who'd like to come up for public comment? Okay, I don't see any other hands up. So I'm going to close this to public comment right now. And I'll go back to the council to see if there's any additional comments, questions. Councilmember White?
I do have a question, and I don't know, it might be something that Councilmember McLaughlin and on the state and their roles, and the other two members of the public talking about, is this even a matter that we can, I guess we can discuss, but is this even a matter that we have any input in? Of course, I've known many people who've lived in the 49er trailer park for extended periods of time, and I do not want to unhouse anyone, and I do believe it is a way that you can live. But I also know that I do see other TOT people, or providers sitting here in our audience, and I just, I'm all about fair is fair. So that's just my two questions about it. I mean, if this is something that perfectly fine with 49er and it's totally legal and everything, then, I don't know. And the way I looked at it on it is, it was just to discuss, and if there was any direction to give, then we gave the direction. If there wasn't.
Thank you. Councilmember McLaughlin?
Yeah, I think it's just important that I was introduced to this community and grew to love this community by staying in 49er Village for, I don't know, dozens of times. And so, I mean, it's something that's true and fond. I'm an RV user, and so truly everyone's comments tonight about the people, absolutely, people are the first and foremost. This isn't about displacing. This isn't trying to increase revenue. This isn't about anything. We have, I mean, it's been brought up by a few people in public comment tonight, that it's not the park in some ways that it once was. Can we influence that? The question that Mr. Klaproth brought up, that for any business in town, it would go through our planning commission, it would be approved by city planning, it would be done through our city building officials. For RV parks in the 1980s, through lobbying efforts, RV parks throughout the state of California, all the permitting and planning is all done through housing and community development, so that every RV park in the state has the same conditions put on it, and local government can't influence those local pieces. We just don't have a seat at the table, right? It's not a matter of wanting to, I don't want to impose anything. I want to see this park flourish, right? It's in whatever format. I think for me, Ms. Marino made a great suggestion of, we need information to be able to do a study session, but it needs to be a more broad study session. As Ms. Lebenko pointed out, that we need TOT revenue to be able to look in the totality, right? If we do, as an example, if we do an analysis in TOT, it shows that 49er Village TOT has gone down by 6%, but 6% is compared to what? Maybe we find the rest of the city's gone down by 8%, right? And so they've actually, I mean, I'm being arbitrary, but we need the totality to be able to bring it forward. I think it's an important conversation, and I think as was brought up by a couple of our citizens, I think it's important to identify what, if any, position can we actually take? Is there anything that we can do as a city legally, not court legally, but anything that we have that we can do as a city to make sure we're advocating and have a right to defend the rest of our city around one business? And I really don't like this conversation focusing on one business, because our issue is much bigger. But this one is unique because we don't have the jurisdiction that we would have for any other business or any other private property or any else, whatever, in the community, to make sure that they're paying their fair share or doing whatever the part would be. And I know I'm rambling, but I think it's I guess just getting clarity of, I guess I'd be open to identifying clarity for what our next steps may be on this.
Thank you. Councilmember Amoruso?
Nothing at the moment.
Okay. Vice Mayor Sim?
Yes, about a year ago, I did reach out to the California. There is a division that oversees mobile homes and parks in general. And the gentleman I spoke to told me that everything that basically all the laws and the regulations that take place in a mobile home are done by the city itself. The state doesn't step in and control it. They're mainly they're a complaint-driven division. They only come out when there's a major complaint. The reason I was particularly calling them a year ago is I thought there was quite a few what I thought may have been some violations taking place there, and I thought it would be good for somebody to come out from the state and let's look it over and make sure that they were doing the right thing. And again, he told me that they won't come out unless there's a major complaint, and that we pretty much take care of all the internal issues that go on with how it's being run by the city, not the state. Thank you.
Okay. I also want to reiterate what others have said, that this has nothing to do with the people that live in the RV in 49er Village, or even the circumstances why they live there. Maybe because some people could just be living there for a number of reasons, and that's fine. Quite frankly, a lot of that, it's none of my business why people live there. As far as any staff direction or where I'd like to see us go from here, I think a number of questions were raised, and as time allows, I'd like to ask if we can have staff answer some of these questions in no particular order. Fiscal impacts and who does have authority and what kind of authority and permits and that sort of thing. So I know I'm being a little bit vague, but I think we covered a lot here tonight.
Yeah, let me I can answer that one now.
Okay.
HCD does have exclusive enforcement over what goes on inside the park. They have also building permit authority and inside the internal walls of the park under state law. There are, so broadly speaking, they have a lot of control over the parks that we don't. I'm not exactly sure what Vice Mayor Sim was referring to, but it sounds like, yeah, their process for dealing with certain things is complaint driven. In other words, they don't send out people to just affirmatively inspect, which is pretty consistent with most public agencies, frankly, due to limited resources. So that's not surprising, but it's still their jurisdiction. As it relates to, though, but that's sort of a separate question than what I'm hearing the council and what's being discussed tonight. The question that I'm hearing is what issues are implicated when we're talking about short-term stays at the park versus longer-term stays at the park. And state law does allow time occupancy limitations to be imposed, even at a park under the Special Occupancy Parks Act. That is something that the council could look at. It requires us to look at things, though, beyond just revenue. It requires looking at the impacts to the whole, and I'm just going to use this colloquial term now for purposes of easier to understand, for purposes of Airbnb type short-term stays, right? If there is a decreasing amount of inventory in the city for short-term stays due to a decreasing amount of inventory at the park specifically, especially when this is a major contributor of short-term stays. It's very possible we could have an overall net decrease in that inventory overall that could affect the tourism and short-term stays for people coming from outside the areas, which obviously could affect your greater tourist industry, the burgeoning, wine country, all that stuff that this area is, known for. So I mean, you need to look at findings beyond just, hey, what's the impacts to the TOT revenue? You want to explore what's the impacts to the short-term rental inventory in the city writ large, based upon an increase in one big cross section, or a decrease in one potential decrease in one big piece of that pie, which is this RV park. So the point is, yes, generally, broadly speaking, there are a lot of limitations that we have with respect to RV parks. But one tool would be looking at some time limitations as it relates to the stay of occupancy. But again, that's going to require more analysis, more digging into investigations, and more information bringing back to staff or bringing back to the council and the community.
Thank you. Does the council wish to move forward with some of this deeper dive analysis that we'd be asking staff to do? I know I would.
I personally like Ms. Marino's idea of a workshop. I think the water's really muddy with a lot of this, and if a lot of information could be brought forth in that workshop, I think that might be a good idea for the citizens and council and planning commissioners and whatever can participate in it. I think that would be great.
Do you feel like we'd need some of these questions answered prior to a workshop?
Well, of course.
Oh, okay. So ask city staff to do some analysis, bring some information back in the form of a workshop?
Sounds good.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's pretty muddy right now. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think Keith said it right. The water's a little muddy because there's multiple facets in play here, right? We need to take each one, do the analysis, look at the totality of the impact, the totality of TOT, the totality of indirect impacts, the totality of what we can do or what we can't, from the legal aspects, the capacity, the tourism, transient capacity in town, and be able to have all that information so that we can go through a workshop, present that information, be able to discuss it, and really identify if there's any there, if you will, or if there's anything we can do about it. So fully support that idea.
I would like to see what the original use permit looked like back when Sun Industry purchased that property.
I have had
Would
staff.
that be a public record?
I have had staff looking for that for 10 days, and
Sorry?
I have had staff looking for that for
Okay.
10 days, and we are unable to locate it. I believe it was in records that were in the building that the roof collapsed.
Perhaps the gentleman who sold the property to Sun Industries might have something that he'd be willing to show us.
I have a meeting with him tomorrow about that.
Thank you.
I concur. I think this is a good way to handle this, and it gets multiple inputs, and I think that was the spirit of the whole thing in the first place. At the end of the day. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the spirit, the intent for tonight was to have a discussion and get all this out on the table so we can figure out how to move forward if we need to, or also look at if this how this might have an impact on our budget, and also to talk about what changes we might need to prepare budget-wise. But I think that's a little bit down the road. Margaret, do you feel like we've Go ahead.
No, I do not have enough. I need to know exactly what analysis you want because I have to be able to give the finance director, because it will be her and I that will work on it. I don't have any other staff to delegate to. As you know, I'm down a staff member in finance. So will just be the finance director and I only have her 1 day a week.
Okay.
So, and that's if I'm lucky.
Okay. Any thoughts from the rest of the council on specifics?
I think, from the finance perspective, I think it'd be, the all-around citywide TOT. And we want to, where it's appropriate, obviously, it'd be nice to not have names of businesses. I don't know how those records look, right? It's not looking to out or separate, but it'd be nice to know so we can identify and partition maybe by occupancy type. I don't know. Anyway, but it'd be a TOT, the TOT numbers, certainly a historical rundown that we could, then extrapolate a projection off of, would be helpful. And then it would be, whatever we can do, specifics in terms of what we can do legally from a legal perspective, not, again, legally, but what we can do administratively as a council for terms of stay, et cetera, and whether or not we even want to go down that path.
I can tell you that TOT has not been entered for 2 years. It will take me some time to get that compiled.
Okay. Would it make sense to, for the purposes of this discussion and giving direction as far as moving forward, would it make sense to table this for a bit and revisit this in, I don't know, a couple of months?
If I could have till February, the beginning of February, that would be great.
Good idea.
I think we're all good with that. And then that gives us a chance. That gives us a chance to think about the discussion and see if we have more specifics. But I think that's certainly reasonable. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to item 7.2. Consider adoption of a city council accountability policy. Could we please have a staff report?
This policy is to assure that the public confidence in the integrity of the local governments is to that you guys will hold yourself accountable to each other and to the public and to foster trust from the public. This will be, I wrote the policy initially for the city council and I tried at the 8th hour to encompass it to the planning commission, and that didn't work. So it came back to just being the city council. I think I will need to bring it back for the planning commission so that both bodies are running at the same accountability level in terms of how you're running the meetings. It's not unusual for all bodies to run at the same accountability level. So this would be City Council Policy CC007. It doesn't have any financial impact to the city. And it's a quite extensive policy. It's a policy that's used in a lot of agencies, and I am bringing it forward and recommending its adoption.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and open this to public comment. We haven't received any written public comment on this. Is there? Yes, please come on up.
My name's Amy Gomes, I'm a resident of Plymouth. I just read through it, and lately I've been noticing that a lot of these policies that are coming through, they require a quorum for you to all agree on. Sometimes I think that's appropriate, but I feel like if someone or any elected official or appointed is breaking the law, that any one of you should be able to bring it forward and not all agree on it before you do. So the second paragraph of the section that says policy is where that's included. And then procedures, section BA also includes that need for a quorum. And this is kind of a small thing, but all of your policies are coming in as AA, AB, AC. So when I'm trying to cite them, I feel like I'm sounding stupid, but it should be like 1A, 1B. And so that would be good. So that if you do have a problem, then you can actually cite where it's at. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on this? Yes, please come on up.
Stephanie Moreno, resident, small business owner, former city planning commissioner. I have a couple of questions. And since I know you'll probably refer them to staff, I just want you to know the last round of questions I asked City Council over a month ago, I still haven't had follow-up from staff on. So if you're going to refer them to staff, if you could hold them accountable to get back to the public, because the questions that we have are important to us. My question is that I'd like to know, I've never seen a censor policy for a small town before. I don't know what the motivation is other than you've been dealing with some rogue council members and planning commissioners lately and you want to shut that down. But I'd like to encourage you to think that each one of you is representing constituents, and you may not agree, but that means your constituents don't agree either. You shouldn't be encouraging only majority opinions. You should be encouraging discourse and compromise and consensus. And these policies that you're presenting are doing the opposite. They're putting a divided council where a single council member who disagrees with the others is viewed as an outlier and something to be dealt with. So my question is, how many other small towns in Amador or in local Sierra Nevada counties have censor policies? My second question is, if a council member is in violation of a current municipal code, will this council proceed with censoring that council member for failing to follow the municipal code? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here in City Hall who'd like to comment on this? I don't see any hands up. Okay, we'll close this to public comment. Open it for staff discussion. And Councilmember White?
I don't have anything at this time right now.
Councilmember McLaughlin?
I have a couple of just administrative pieces that I caught up. The very last sentence in policy, I think it's just the very last three words. It says at least 2 times. Where it's more than at least 2 times, I think least can just be dropped. And then under procedures, item A, subsection B, should be added to an upcoming meeting agenda. And then
I'm sorry, say that again?
Procedures, informal admonition, A, B. It'd be the second line. It says the informal admonition to an upcoming meeting agenda, right?
Okay.
So, and then just making sure that adding to the agenda for both the admonition and censure is they're consistent in that language. Other than that, I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Councilmember Amoruso?
I have nothing, thank you.
Vice Mayor Sim.
I have nothing.
And I have nothing either on this. And so I'd entertain a motion on this policy. Somebody would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve City Council Policy CC07, City Council Accountability, with the changes suggested in my comments.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Go have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember McLaughlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Amoruso,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sim,
Abstain.
Mayor Ackerland.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Item 7.3, consider adoption of City Council Conduct of Public Meetings Policy. Can we please have a staff report?
City Council Policy CC08 is the City Council Conduct of Public Meetings, and this is to provide guidance on how to, for the conducting of a public meeting, to ensure consistent format and clearly delineating the process so the ample opportunity for the community to interact with their public officials. And staff is recommending adoption.
Okay, I'd like to open this to public comment now. Is there anybody here in City Hall who'd like to make public comment? Yes, please come on up.
Stephanie Moreno, Plymouth resident, small business owner. Same comments as before, that I think the council is adopting policies that are divisive among the council members, intended to chill public comment, to chill council member representation of constituents, and I encourage you to reconsider how you're voting on these policies. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to make public comment? I don't think you need to introduce yourself every time.
I don't think so either.
Or you, Miss.
But Jamie
Miss Moreno,
Lebanco,
thank
in
you.
case for the person doing minutes.
Okay.
If it's a recording. And I'm not looking at social media. I was trying to read these agenda packet items on my phone. And I'm sorry, because I'm coming back to you with a question that I brought in one of my previous comments, and I'm trying to find it in this policy. I'm a little bit thrown by the lack of public comment at the special meetings, and then when I try to say, okay, that's part of a special meeting, the way that it's laid out, then I'm curious what constitutes a special meeting. And I'm trying to get these answers because they're going to be thrown out there the moment we leave this room. And I would just really love the councils and maybe the staff to let the community know why we're having these series of special meetings and why the times and dates are being changed. And then those special meetings eliminate public comment on items other than items on the agenda. I'm not sure this is appropriate for this agenda item, but I was scrolling madly through this policy to see if it was. So thank you.
Ms. Lebanco? The reason we've been having so many special meetings is due to scheduling issues with both staff and council, and scheduled vacations and sicknesses and illnesses with families. And so with the holidays coming up, we're trying to get matters that are of importance taken care of before the major holidays come up. And we've been trying to give as much notice as possible. As you know, we did not only give 24-hour notice. I tried my darndest to get the packet out on Friday, but we didn't make it. We got it out on Monday. I'm hoping not to have to schedule any more special meetings. I'm doing the best I can. I only have myself doing all of the staff reports. It's just me, and I'm doing the best that I can.
I'm not going to be able to allow that. I do want to add also that I think it's important to note that one of our meetings one night was interrupted, and so that also threw us off as far as having to reschedule that meeting. So thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay, no more. I'll go ahead and close this to public comment. Is there any more council discussion?
I believe just the second part of Ms. Labinko's request was the public comment piece. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but or Frank, if you want to answer in terms of a special meeting.
Yeah, that's just set forth in state law. Special meetings, regular stated meetings under the Brown Act are entitled to public comment on non-agenda items. That is not under special meetings. Public comment is reserved for agenda items. So all this is simply following that the Brown Act's distinction in that regard.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Can I ask a question of Frank, that we're on this topic?
Of course.
Because these special meetings are seeming to take the place of regular agenda meetings, is there any way that public comment, or is it just because it has the label special meeting, we can't have the open public comment?
The council could consider a policy to do that. The problem if you do that is you better start doing it at every meeting, because then people are going to say, you know, you're not providing even treatment. And as far as I've been with the city for 5 years, I don't recall a time we've allowed public comment for non-agenda items at special meetings. So that would have to be something that's looked at by the council.
No, I totally understand that, and I know we're in a fluke situation. I don't want to get into too much what's going on in my life right now, but there's been meetings I can't make, and we've just been trying to take care of regular business. And I know we had a meeting that was canceled at one point in time. I know we had the Zoom bomb meeting, so I will apologize for, you know, on my behalf on that.
Any other city council comment? Okay. I would entertain a motion regarding item 7.3 to consider the adoption of city council conduct of public meetings policy.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I just had
Of course.
one piece. I'm sorry, one item led into the other. Item G, under item G, under public comment, I do not believe that I saw an opportunity to submit written comments before 3 o'clock on meeting days. I think it'd be important certainly to add that piece. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve policy CC 008, conduct of public meetings, with the addition of the ability to submit written comments in advance of a meeting under item G.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember McLaughlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Amoruso,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sim,
Aye.
Mayor Ackerland.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Item 7.4. To consider adoption of city council committees policy. Could we please have a staff report?
City Council Policy CC 033 is intended for the council to determine how to create policies, committees, and to outline the process for creating and administering city council created committees, such as the recently created ad hoc safety committee. And so that would just set the policy on how those are created and set that so that they're all created equally.
Thank you. I'd like to open this for public comment. Item 7.4. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, there's no public comment. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just generally, it was just pointed out to me that there's no packets available for members of the public to look at if they wanted to look at these items, these agendas, and in the past that material was provided to members of the public. So people in the audience don't have the benefit if they didn't look online of what you're looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Okay, I don't see any additional public comment, so I'll close this to public comment and open this for staff discussion. Councilmember White?
I'm good.
Councilmember McLaughlin?
Just a quick general statement overall. The policies that the series of policies that we're looking to adopt and have been adopting over a period of time aren't meant to do anything other than to make sure your government is accountable to you. These policies are absolutely consistent with the National League of Cities, the California League of Cities, the California Government Code, and every general law city and charter city in the state of California has, well, I can't say every, there's no such thing as never and always, but pretty much every city has policies of these type so that when we're elected to office, we can read and know what we're responsible for doing. We can hold ourselves accountable, because if we can't articulate what our job is, how can we hold ourselves accountable, and how can we expect you to hold us accountable if you don't know what we're supposed to be doing? And so I think this work we're doing and going forward is trying to make us more transparent, more accountable to the community, more accessible to the community, not less accountable. And so anyway, I'll stop there.
Thank you. Councilmember Amoruso?
Nothing.
Vice Mayor Sim?
I'm good.
Okay, and I have a question for staff, not necessarily on the policy, but after these policies are adopted, where do they live?
Not under the roof.
Are they on the website? Are they all in a binder somewhere?
Right there.
Okay, all right, I know where to come.
They will be online, yes.
Okay, thank you. I have no other questions or comments on that. So I entertain a motion regarding item 7.4 to consider adoption or to adopt the City Council Committee's policy. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion
Thank you.
to accept policy CC-033, City Council Created Committee, and as the policy that outlines the process for creating and administrating City Council created committees.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember McLaughlin?
Aye.
Councilmember Amoruso?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sim?
Aye.
Mayor Ackerland?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 7.5, to determine if the council would like to reconsider Prop 68 Park Grant Fund allocations. Could we please have a staff report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the November 2nd City Council meeting, Vice Mayor Sim requested that the item come back for reconsideration of the decision splitting the Prop 68 grants between McGee Park and Lodge Hill, to split the grant funding for the Prop 68 grant into the two funds, into the two parks, which would give each park $88,976. And so if the council wants to reconsider the item, that would be it would take a motion by a member of the winning side of the vote that originally split the funds. So that is the item before you.
Okay. I'd like to open this for public comment. Is there anybody here in City Hall who'd like to make public comment?
My name's Amy Gomes. I'm a City of Plymouth resident. I didn't fully understand all of that, but I'm speaking to not split up the funds, or to keep the funds as one, but not put it to McGee Park. So I don't think that the funds should all go to McGee Park. I think they should be to Lodge Hill. And my logic for that is because in your agenda item for 7.6, the public input, I don't know what the point system was, but it was 22 points for each item in Lodge Hill. So the two ideas got the most support from the public to develop Lodge Hill. And I think that McGee Park is usable as it sits. I mean, there's things that could be done to it, but if we could spend some of that money, or all of the money, it's not a whole lot, but at Lodge Hill, it could at least be maybe something that's bringing in money for the city. People would be there more. The kids could play there more. It's just, I think McGee Park's lovely as it is. I don't think it needs another $200,000 to it, or whatever it is. That's all I have.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here in City Hall who'd like to make public comment on this? Okay, I don't see any hands up. So I'll close it to public comment and open this for staff discussion. Councilmember White?
Sorry, and just to frame this properly, this action right now is just to consider whether the council wants to reconsider that substantive policy discussion. If so, it'll be considered at the next item. Because because the proper way to do this is to vote, because the council's already spoken and given direction on how these grant proceeds are to be used. The first decision has to be made whether or not, as a body, you want to reconsider it, and that requires a motion by a member who was in the prevailing party, prevailing side at the time it was decided. So my point is, discuss whether you want to reconsider it. That's the point of this conversation. Then you can discuss what you want to do with the money if it passes at the very next item.
Okay. I think at the time when this item was voted on, it was kind of one of those things where we were looking at a compromise through the council. But I do agree with Councilmember Sims that if the funds are split between the two properties, it's not going to go very far. So I'm up for rediscussing it.
Councilmember McLaughlin?
I wasn't here, so I don't have any comment at this time.
Good point. Councilmember Amoruso.
I would agree with Keith. I think, this was a situation where, we were kind of divided, but we all compromised and came together at the end of the day. But I think time has brought us forward in looking at this project in its entirety and what we could actually physically do with that much split money versus what we could do with one. It doesn't matter what project we picked, but at the end of the day, we're back to that. Let's consolidate and try and get a better project overall for the community. So I think that's all I have to say to that.
Vice Mayor Sim?
Obviously, I'm the one that brought this up originally, but anyway, given the fact that it's only $178,000, and I did look at the items that the public input produced a few weeks ago, and the items that were listed under the McGee Park. One was a permanent shade structure. One was more lighting for the entire park, as well as the kids' play structure. One item was an entrance to the back of the park with steps and railing from Landrum Street down to the park. Also, one comment was to create a party area on the upper part of the park where people could could move some tables up there and gather in that area. And the thing that I was kind of curious about was nobody mentioned the fact that this restroom is in very poor condition, and hopefully a few funds can go to at least making it operational. I suppose it'll never look very good, but it's half-time. The ladies' portion of it doesn't even work anyway. So I think it's the thing to do. It's not, these things are not cheap. I think if they're done properly, we could address most of them, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. And I think I just agree with what's already been said, that at the time, this was looking at a way to compromise and make some improvements into both parks. We get into it, and there's quite a bit of sticker shock. Yeah. And then when we look at some of these ideas, we have to take into consideration of other costs that maybe might not be so obvious, like improving drainage and grading and things like that might need to happen with some of these. So anyway, I support the idea of combining the two projects into one. Any other council comments?
Actually, I do have one more.
Oh, yes, please.
So I was at the parks workshop we had here, 2.5, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. And it was split up, just to give you kind of a frame of what that looked like that night. They had Lodge Hill over there, and they had McGee Park over here. So it was
Peter,
an equal vote.
That's really more for the second.
Okay, sorry.
Or
Okay.
The second.
I was just trying to
next
clarify.
item.
So, okay, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all good.
Okay. So Frank, would it be appropriate for somebody to make a motion if that's what we want to do? And
Yeah, just a motion to reconsider
Okay.
the
And it
previous
has to be-
decision, and I'm just. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
Or
that
you
was
want Keith? You can.
that was
make
easy.
No, you make the motion. It's all you.
Go, Peter.
Okay, Peter's made a motion.
Okay, I'm making the motion that we go to the next step.
To reconsider
To
the.
reconsider the, you know.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Our previous decision.
Sorry. Do we have a second?
I'll second all that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember McLaughlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Amoruso.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sim,
Aye.
Mayor Ackerland.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay. Item 7.6, discuss the Prop 68 grant funds and potentially determine the projects for Lodge Hill or McGee Park. Could we please have a staff report?
Yes, we had 2 public participation meetings for the grant funds. The first meeting, we did charts, and they gave a lot of really good ideas, and we charted those out. And then we got some feedback that a lot of people didn't get enough notice, so we held a second meeting, and we got some feedback in written comments, and so we added those comments to the first workshop comments, and we had those posted up in the room, separated by Lodge Hill on that side of the room, McGee Park on this side of the room. And everybody that came in got 3 stickers, 1, 2, and 3, and they got to hold on to those to the end. And then they gave additional suggestions, not very many though, actually, because most of the items that they had were already suggested. And then they started crossing off items that were either unrealistic or outside the price of what the grants were, or that were included in another description, and they narrowed the list down. And so they got the list on both sides of the room narrowed down as much as they thought they could. And then each participant in the room got up and they put their stickers 1, 2, and 3 on their first, second, and third choice that they wanted to see the park grant money spent for. So they had 3 stickers for Lodge Hill and 3 stickers for McGee Park. So they got to pick their first 3 choices for both parks. So there wasn't a because at that point the funds were split into 2 grants. So there wasn't a competition between the 2. So when you see the points in the packet, the numbers were on a queue, you know. The number 1's got 3 points, the number 2's got 2 points, and their first choice got 3, second choice got 2 points, and their third choice got 1 point. And that's how the points came up to be. And so, depending on which park you decide, you could go based on those points. You have to take into consideration that prevailing wage has to be paid. I want you to consider when you look at the permanent shade structure at McGee Park, if you put a permanent shade at the bottom part of the park, it's going to block the gazebo, and you will no longer see the gazebo at the park. So take that into consideration, and the lawn underneath will die. I'm going to put my 2 cents in. I think McGee Park is beautiful as it is. I'm going to agree with Ms. Gomes. I think Lodge Hill needs some work to make it a more usable park, a more usable facility. But at the end of the day, the choice is yours. Here's what the community put in from the 2 meetings that were held. Mayor Ackerland, you were at both meetings. You know what the participants were saying. So you have a pretty good idea of the participants that were here. And you saw all the written comments that were read out loud and who sent them in. So you know the feedback from the community. I think we had a wide range of input from a variety of the community. We had parents of small kids. We had parents of middle-aged kids that gave input. We had parents of special needs kids. We had seniors. And this is what they came up with. So now that it's down to 1 park, it's a little more work to put in for you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to open this for public comment. Public comment? Yes, please. Mr. Klaproth, come on up.
Bill Klaproth, Plymouth resident, City Planning Commission. First of all, thank you for the workshops. I think they were done very well. I attended the first, and great ideas, and I think that was a great way of getting community input and how you rank the projects. And I'm sure the cost is high for anything, right? To do anything these days, it's extraordinary. So it'd be nice to have something impactful that we can really see at the end of the day. And that probably is one nice larger scale, as much as you could get with the money for 1 park. So my input. Thank you.
Thank you. More public comment? Please come on up.
Stephanie Moreno, city resident, small business owner. I have a question and a comment. Hopefully you can answer the question today. I'd appreciate it if you would. But it seems to me that the money has shrunk that's available since the first time this was heard. Maybe Councilmember Amoroso remembers that amount, I don't know, but I thought it was over 200,000. It seems like I heard 171 today, so just wondering what happened to the other money, if it was used for some other project or we lost some of the grant. So that's one question.
Matching funds.
Yes, please.
I saw your Facebook post on that, and so I did go back and look, and the original grant was for the 177.
There were 2 grants originally.
I only found one.
There were 2 combined together, I believe, is what I understood. I can send you the link. I think I did some research on it.
That was all I was able to find with the grants.
All right. The comment is that Amy and I have been trying to get to work on doing some community things to fill some gaps in service. And we looked at Lodge Hill, and I did call Dana about it, about renting it, and the parking is insufficient there for people to actually use it. We wanted to use it for senior meals, to restore senior meals. All we have to do is find a location and then get the volunteers. We're halfway there. But you can't expect seniors to walk up that hill, and there's not enough parking up there. So I'd like to encourage you that leveraging that money at Lodge Hill would bring a bigger benefit to the people that need the use of that Lodge Hill for a commercial kitchen and individual events than perhaps putting it at McGee Park. Thank you.
Just to clarify, currently there's not a commercial kitchen there, right? Correct? Okay. Any other public comment on this? Yeah.
Okay, my name's Amy Gomes. I'm a City of Plymouth resident. I guess I'm going to say the same type of thing as the last one, but I hope that you got my public comments because I did make a public comment about the fixtures in the bathrooms, so that was included. Okay, thank you. I did want to again reiterate that the 22 points for public input both times were for Lodge Hill, so everyone is. I mean, it seems like people are interested in developing that. And I also think that, so Stephanie was speaking of the meals for seniors, and it is a bad hill there. So I don't know if it was discussed about maybe having it curve around, because people at times are going to walk even if they could drive, or so it would be helpful. I don't know if that was part of that plan. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie Labenko. I'll add to my list of ways I introduce myself and add Rotarian to it. Because when I'm looking at this, and I'm curious, the Veterans Park has some of these like walking paths and senior exercise equipment and stuff like that as part of their build-out plan. So I just wanted to make sure that we considered that. To me, I think they're all lovely ideas. I just would hate to see us duplicate things in such a small town. So thank you.
Thank you. That's helpful. Well, they all are. Any other public comment? Okay, there's no more public comment, so I'll close this to public comment right now. Open this for council discussion, starting with Councilmember White.
I've always felt, and I think initially when we talked about this, that there's some very pressing issues at Lodge Hill. And like I said, I think we got into a vote of a compromise. I know McGee Park gets used more, but I think McGee Park's in way better shape. Lodge Hill also can provide after-school programs for our youth and other things of that nature. I kind of got excited about a Meals for Seniors program. That sounds pretty cool to me. So I don't know. That's just kind of my input on it and kind of my direction where I feel like we should look at focusing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McLaughlin?
To start with just a question for clarification. I know the bathroom at McGee Park's come up with a couple times. Just clarification from staff that if I recall correctly, repairs to existing facilities are outside the scope of this grant, correct?
That's correct.
Great, thank you. No, I really appreciate the comment, and it'd be great to see. It's been great receiving the comments that we have on this. It'd be great to see the old side of Lodge Hill come alive again. There's not nearly enough money by tenfold at this point, but it'd be nice to see really how much we're able to do. The challenge we have, with parking, just the question was brought up about additional parking. I'd love to see that, but obviously that'd be a priority. I could see that being the whole grant. But I guess the nice thing is we have a grant to be able to do some of this, a lot of it, and different things. I think it's a great opportunity, and I too am excited to hear about a seniors meal program. I'd love to be a part of it.
Thank you. Councilmember Amoruso?
I will concur with both my prior council members. I think that Lodge Hill is probably best. It's probably one of the more underserved parks in our community. So I think, to try and enhance that and make it more usable, again, for the community in a whole, I think it makes sense. I mean, I think we all know what McGee Park is like. And, we have Veterans Park being worked on. And it'd be nice to have a third, and maybe even add some of that blue. What's your dad always advocating for? The blue walk or whatever, the blue line? What? The blue zone. Linking these parks where, they everyone kind of walk and go do that. I mean, so, there's, I think, some good options coming that way. And again, love to hear about the meals for the seniors again. Because it was always fun to come sit down and visit with them when they eat. Because, they always have good stories and, memories. And so, all right. Thank you very much. I think that's all I got.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Sim?
Margaret, I recall there being a matching funds component to this 177, which took it well over $200,000, right?
Yeah, so I'm
Like
actually looking at the December, at least a rough draft of the December 21 agenda where this was voted on.
Yeah.
And it was 177 and change as the grant, but there was a 44,488 matching component. So that's probably the confusion about quote unquote two grants. It was a grant with a nearly $45,000 matching component, which took it over 200,000 total.
Matching from us,
Right.
Yes, from us, not from the state.
So we're getting 178, and we're putting up 44, basically. Is there a period of time this money has to be spent? Is it, you seeing that, is it over a period of a year, or do we have a time, is there a time frame in all this? Okay, well, if you don't know, we can.
It's in 2024.
So we have.
There's an extension into 24 or early 25.
Well, I'm only thinking about dragging it out as far as we can before we have to pay the $45,000. But anyways, obviously, I think Keith said I hate to give money away. I remember your comment. So, and that's what we'd be doing if we didn't move forward on this grant. So anyway, that's all I have.
I don't really have anything. I'm glad we got some clarification on the total amount of the grant money that's available. So thank you, Ms. Marino, for bringing that up and you clarifying. Yeah, I don't have anything else. Any other staff discussion? Okay. Do we want to give staff direction, or do we need to make a motion on this? What are the wishes of the council? Yeah, we can.
So I guess we're gonna go with making a motion to discuss, or not discuss, to use the Prop 68 grant funds potentially, or for the project at Lodge Hill, in its entirety. Would that be a fair?
For what improvements?
Well, we'd have to work within those top improvements that we already identified.
Do we have a second?
Was that clear? Or actually seeking clarification on that, would it be following the order of the weighted list and however many we can fund under the grant? Just making sure I understand the motion.
It would be in those top three. The top three identified?
Yep.
And what we can afford within that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing precluding, I mean, I think the idea is to get direction so your city manager and staff can start the process. There may be fine tuning or tweaking or moving of money, and that would come back to the council. This is just so she knows she can start working on that process with at least the initial priorities listed there. Correct? Is that the?
I was going to ask if I can ask a question before the second was made, but technically I think it was made. But okay.
Is the verbiage correct?
Yeah, sorry for the choppiness of my verbiage.
But would it make sense to give direction to get some quotes and that sort of thing first? Or do we need to make the motion to move forward first? Okay.
Take a lot of time.
Okay. That helps. Okay. Did you want to finish your second that I interrupted?
Sure. You're clear? I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Councilmember McLaughlin,
Aye.
Councilmember Amoruso,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Sim,
Aye.
Mayor Ackerland.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Okay, could we please have a do you have a city manager's report for us?
Just a brief report following up on Mr. Cranford's letter. The Village Drive is not in the Miwok Ion Band Trust. It looks like it is on the map, but verified with LAFCO that it is not in their trust. There's a line that is, if you look at my handy dandy nice little artwork here, Village Drive is the circle drive. The Miwoks own this property to this side, and then this is the Shenandoah Inn, and then the Miwok Ion Band own this property behind the Shell station. This property line inadvertently got drawn across Village Drive when it shouldn't have on the map, which made it look like they got Village Drive when in fact they didn't. LAFCO's very clear that it's not, and it's my understanding that the tribe also knows that it's not. So it's clear to all parties that the city still owns the street, and all parties concerned are in agreement that the street is the city's and it's not roped off or in any way, shape, or form. The city street is still open for city traffic.
Thank you.
Is there a way to notify Mr. Cranford?
Yes, we'll notify him.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for looking into that. Anything else on a city manager's report? I think you've covered enough tonight.
City staff will be celebrating Thanksgiving with our own Thanksgiving feast on Monday, and so we'll be closing City Hall for a bit.
Okay. Thank you. And council member reports or requests for future agenda items. Well, let's do future agenda items separately. We'll go back and do that. Councilmember White, anything you'd like to report?
None at this time.
Councilmember McLaughlin?
A short time ago, I was contacted by Teresa and Greg Almeida. They live in the Willow Springs area. Their address is Plymouth, but obviously not Plymouth proper. And through friends of theirs, they were given a what would be called a street clock. The street clock, part of the designation giving to them was to find a rightful home. And where I talk about this street clock, this particular clock has been in a number of calendars among everything. It's a cast iron, 12 to 15 foot tall, 3 foot diameter clock face, two-sided, just a true real work of art that's been donated to the city. And so I'll be working with some of our more muscular ambassadors and tractors and equipment to pick up the clock the first week of December. And Vice Mayor Sim has offered space to be able to store the clock inside until we're in a position to be able to install it. But really should be just a beautiful addition to our main street. It's I have some pictures, maybe we'd like to see them, and we'll certainly have more, more professionally looking photos than the ones I have, but really just a beautiful donation.
Thank you. Councilmember Amoroso?
I have nothing at this time. Are we doing future agenda items?
We'll come back to
Okay,
that.
no, okay, I wasn't sure. I thought I heard you say.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Sim?
I did see the picture of the clock, and it's beautiful. I think it stands about 15 feet tall, and it's going to be a very nice addition to our little park. And I think it'll look really good. Good job.
And I don't have anything to report, so now I'll go around and ask if there's any requests for future agenda items. Councilmember White?
I'm good at this time.
Councilmember McLaughlin?
Nothing at this time.
Councilmember Amoroso? Vice Mayor Sim?
I'm good.
And I'm also good. It's 8:31. The meeting's now adjourned. We're going into closed session. Pardon me? Is there any public comment for a closed session? Okay, no public comment for closed session. So we'll now adjourn this meeting and go into closed session. Thank you.
Closed session. Oh, here it is. That's a recording closed session.
Oh, that's after.
Oh,
It's
here.
9.1.
Missed that.
Yeah.
Didn't see that on there. So we came on.
So I've got a small question. So